We'll start the show in just a minute, but first, a word from our premier brand sponsor, Boom.
My name is Richard Marshall. The company that I own is called Knox Cape Town. We have approximately 200 villas, and all in the 4-star, 5-star, and ultra luxurious segment. Most of the solutions in the industry were focused on managing a property, but not managing a business. And the thing that really stood out to me about Boom was that it gave us the ability as business owners to zoom out and take a 30,000-foot view of the business and look at how are my staff performing. We had a huge problem with guest communications post-arrival. So the solution that Boom had in place with centralized communication was invaluable for us. It enabled us to massively improve our client communications. When Boom informed me that their AI was up and running and ready for prime time, I was very skeptical, to be honest. Clients are very demanding clients. We deal in the premium end of the market. So I was nervous to give free rein to the AI. So we started with a very gradual approach towards AI, where initially everything was just done on a co-pilot basis, where to the point now where we've allow it to handle our customer service inquiries on an autopilot basis. The feedback from property owners since we've moved across to Boom has been nothing but positive. Boom allows them to get the information that they need to feel comfortable that they know exactly what's happening in the property. So I'm a huge promoter of Boom, and I would certainly recommend it to all my friends and colleagues. I've personally seen from Boom is how it has really helped me to get my finger on the pulse of the business, see how my business is performing in detail. And I've seen what a big impact it's made, not only on our guest experience, but also on the staff experience. So I'd certainly recommend anyone taking a look.
Head over to boomnow.com to see a demo of this revolutionary software, and be sure to include that you heard about Boom on the Alex and Annie podcast. Our listeners receive 50% off onboarding fees, and the first month is free. Go to boomnow.com and see for yourself how AI is revolutionizing the future of property management systems. Welcome to Alex and Annie, the Real Women of Vacation Rentals. I'm Alex.
And I'm Annie.
And we are joined today by Declan McGonigal, who is the owner-operator at My Beach Vacation Rentals. Declan, it's so good to see you.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So I have to ask the question, McGonigal, are you any relation to Professor McGonigal from Harry Potter?
I'm not.
Oh,
but like
wow.
I was saying, I've fallen in love with the series lately. It's really good. It's funny, my cousins and other parts of my family really liked it. So they're McGonigals, they're on my dad's side. But I never really got the joke until like this past year.
Now you embrace it, right?
now I embrace it. Exactly.
Okay, well, so aside from your Harry Potter fame that we're going to tie you to, I'd love to hear your story. We're going to talk about that, but tell us a little bit about your journey into vacation rentals, where you started and how you got here.
Yeah. So I basically got started in it pretty soon after college. So went to school for engineering, gave that a try up in DC. Didn't really turn out to be my thing. Came back down to North Myrtle Beach, which is where I'm from, born and raised. My family's in the hotel business, so they've always kind of been in the hospitality world. My dad and my uncle had a few short-term rentals, and basically were just, kind of having me manage them because they were essentially self-managing them. So I started with 2, and then kind of fell in love with it. I really enjoyed the mix of, the numbers and the investment side of it and revenue management and whatnot, but also getting out and about and actually running around to all the rentals and checking on them, doing inspections, all that sort of stuff. So I kind of fell in love with the mix and decided that, my dad, again, has his own business. Why not I start kind of my own and learn a bunch from an early age. So started it with like 2, like I said, and then probably grew to 6 after a year. And then maybe a year and a half later, I grew to 10. So I wasn't really seeing a lot of growth, but it kind of took off from there after I got some help from some people in the business and friends in the area. So that's kind of how I got into it.
And how many properties are you up to now?
We're at about 70 now. So
that's huge compared
That's
to
huge,
yeah.
I know. Yeah, it was a big jump. Like I said, it was really slow at the beginning. I just didn't really know what I was getting into. I also had probably a little bit of like young, kind of stubborn ambition as well. I thought, oh, I'm a young guy. I'll come into Myrtle Beach with all these old guys and just kill it. But turns out business is a lot harder than that. It's a lot harder than just coming to a place and having good ideas. So it took me a little bit of time, but got it going. And now it's been about three and a half years, 3 years or so. And like I said, about 70 rentals. So it's been good. Been good growth.
Yeah. That's a good portfolio size. And you're
Yeah.
just slightly north of where I live in Myrtle Beach, and have gotten
Yep.
to kind of watch your journey over the last few years, and just super exciting to, I remember at one point early last year we had spoke, and I think at that point you were at like 30 or 40. And then all of a sudden I saw you last fall and you're like, yep, we're at 70 now. So
Yeah.
really, really impressive growth. But tell us a little bit about how you did grow to that level. Has that been referrals, or are you doing any sort of like homeowner marketing? I know our audience is
Yes.
always curious to hear how people grow that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of it came through realtor referrals, which kind of makes sense, right? Like I'm from the area. I knew a good amount of people. I didn't necessarily know a ton of realtors, but knew a good amount of people. And like I said, that first year was really a struggle. After probably about a year and a half in, I was really considering just like quitting, because I was like, this is too hard. I'm not growing at all. But I had a buddy in on the real estate sales side of things. He was super helpful in kind of just keeping me in it and keeping me motivated, but also kind of giving me sort of a framework to work with to kind of connect with realtors and network with them and grow the referrals from there. So a lot of it, like the early days, was just me just cold calling realtors and just seeing how I can add value to them. A lot of that was rental projections, right? I think that's a pretty common thing today. And it's a pretty, I'm not going to say easy thing to do, but we use Key Data, and they have a really good tool for creating rental projections. So started doing that with realtors. It was received like fairly well. You know, you get the majority of the calls. They'd say, we're good right now. We don't need anything. But just follow up. 3 months later, you start to kind of get some people that, hey, I've got this guy here, or hey, I've got this guy here. And you jump on it quick, right? Because I only had 10, 15 rentals. You know, there wasn't necessarily a ton of work on my plate. So I could get to those things really quickly. And I think the realtors appreciated that. I was always available to help them. Still am available today. I really try to maintain those relationships and give as much value as I can. And that like I said, it took off from there. It took time. Again, it took a few years to get it going, but it kind of blew up. I also think we were, it was fast growth, but I also think it was a time when a lot of transactions were happening.
Yeah.
So I've noticed lately, for example, with the referrals have slowed down a little bit. So now we're trying to figure out how to diversify sort of our marketing approach. But the early days, it was all realtor referrals. That's really how I got from 2 to 60.
Yeah. And you were doing some meetups too, different events and like networking type things that you were hosting.
Yeah.
I think that was really, really brilliant to do, to make those connections.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm even thinking about starting those up again, because we kind of got not lazy with them, but we stopped doing them in the summer, and then I let someone else do them. But yeah, we were doing a host meetup once a month. We just go out to a bar, for essentially a Wednesday or Thursday happy hour. And I put a post out in the Facebook groups. Myrtle Beach has a lot of real estate investment and short-term rental Facebook groups. So it was just putting a post in there saying, hey, any investors, realtors, anybody in the real estate business or anybody that's interested, please come out. And the turnout was small to start, maybe 10 to maybe, 8 to 12 people. But then it started to pick up, and you kind of, there were a few realtors and mortgage folks that would come consistently. So I built really good relationships with them, and that kind of helped my network a lot too, because I noticed the people that would come to those were usually young and kind of hungry in their own industry as well. So just by virtue of building relationships with them, I also got connected with some of the people that they knew. So it was kind of a compound effect. But yeah, doing anything unique like that, again, just to kind of stand out and differentiate yourself from any other property manager that's asking, I think goes a long way.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we know for certain from our experience in the industry, but just in talking with other people, it doesn't matter what market. It's really about, the statement of like your network is your net worth. And the bigger you can build that network up and really consistently work within that network, I mean, it just sort of feeds on itself and helps build things. So very smart, because I think a lot of people that start in the business think that they have all the answers when they start, and they don't try to reach out to other people. They think, I'm just going to go the way I want to do it. it and probably would have given up, if they
Mhm.
hadn't tried. But I did want to ask one thing that we do talk about a lot with our listeners is our tech stack. So you
Mhm.
started out and you grew. And so
Yep.
you had to, with your dad's experience from the hotel side, he probably had some really great insights on technology, but
Yep.
technology for vacation rentals and hotels is very different.
Yeah.
How did you approach that? You
Mhm.
obviously had this great idea of like working within your community, but the technology piece of it is something that you really kind of have to find in your own way. So how did
Yeah.
you approach that?
So I guess the engineering background, I love technology. I love reading about it. I love technology. I feel like a lot of people are in the industry are kind of the same way where you can get just fascinated with all these different tech pieces out there. But we started on Guesty. My dad actually had that in place on the two rentals that he had. So I played around with that, kind of got to using it and there were a few things I just didn't like on it early on. I think they've fixed those things since. But eventually I just made a switch from them after doing some, sort of millennial research, I guess, if you
Trial and
will.
error.
You go on YouTube
Yeah.
and you're just, I'm looking up like top 10 PMS systems on YouTube and that sort of thing. Yeah. And to your point, Annie, there wasn't at that time you're kind of right. There wasn't really anybody else that I knew. Alex, at that time, I don't even think I knew you as far as
Yeah.
asking people in the industry what's a good one to move to. So kind of just YouTube and reviews online. I landed on Hostaway and used Hostaway for a good period of time, and then recently upgraded to Track just because I feel like we had to make a jump and we had to build out a website and a few other things that Track could do well for us. But yeah, definitely the early days, it was a lot of just looking on YouTube, looking on online and whatnot. But I will say that once you meet people in the industry, they'll give you much better advice than
Mhm.
what you find online.
Yeah.
So since then, I've kind of learned, and before I make a move on anything, I definitely ask around and figure out what's good versus what's not. But the early days, yeah, it was just a lot of research online and testing things. Right, I was playing with it. I didn't like this, didn't like that, and then changed to a different solution and figured out what I liked, didn't like. So kind of just learning
Yeah.
on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like the natural metamorphosis of getting into this business. And it's interesting now I see a lot of those Facebook groups of people asking, what's the best PMS or what's the best
Mhm.
this? And you'll have a bunch of people weigh in and the person will say, okay, cool, I'm going to go sign up for that. But
Yeah.
you need more than that.
Yeah.
It's great to have a vote of confidence, especially if you know the person. But if you don't even know the person or
Right.
their business, that makes it kind of a blind decision, to be honest. But
Absolutely.
it makes a much bigger difference when you actually start meeting people and you go to these
Yeah.
conferences, which I know you've gone
Mhm.
to several of the VRMAs now, and you kind of start connecting the dots of like, okay, now I know what I really want, but you have to take those steps first.
And I've noticed too, like I'm one of those people that kind of jumps into things probably a little quicker than I should. So even now, like I look back on like some of the tech we've used in the past, I'm like, yeah, I should have done a little bit more research there, or reached out to somebody, or gone on LinkedIn or found somebody. But I kind of just figured it out at the time. But the conferences, yeah, to your point, Alex, are huge. What you find online, you can learn 10 times more by going to a conference and talking to the people that work at the companies or talking to people around the conference. So yeah, once I got to the conference level, saw that it was eye opening. There's really only so much you can find on YouTube and whatnot too.
Yeah.
It's so different from, I feel like we talk about this a lot. It's so different from market to market, what everybody needs. So
Yeah.
even if you have a YouTube video from some guy in Colorado, it may not be as applicable to your business in Myrtle Beach or in Florida or wherever it is, right? So you always got to take things with a grain of salt, but definitely talking to as many people as you can on that sort of stuff is so important because it's hard to make a switch. Once you're now at 70 units, it's like, okay, I've got to almost
Yeah.
stick with what I've got because the switch would just be kind of taxing on the team. So I would definitely do a good amount of research before you make a move on anything.
Yeah. PMSs are painful if you have to make a switch, especially when the switch is having to made on someone else's timeline. It can
Yeah.
really, really hamper your
Yeah.
operations. In that, do you feel like there's any things that you wish you'd known when you started? So like if somebody comes to you now and says, Declan, like, what are the things I
Yeah.
need to look at? Do you
Yeah.
feel like you have a good sense of things that you missed? You should
Yeah.
have?
Yeah. I'm thinking, I think about this a lot because I go back and forth on Track. I've got good things to say about Track, but one thing I've realized is like, you've just got to figure out like what's important to your business. Like for us, when I think back on it, it's a lot of like simple stuff that just needs to be done well. It maybe not simple stuff, but a few things that need to be done well. Distribution to the channels is super important. A good messaging / like contact inbox is really important to us. The accounting side, that's something that I struggled with kind of on Guesty and a little bit on Hostaway was, once you're getting up to 40, 50, 60 rentals, the accounting side of it gets pretty dang important. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like at 200 or 250. But early days, I was just doing the owner statements kind of in a manual way because for whatever reason, I can't remember why it was, but I just could not get it to work for me correctly or as I wanted to on Hostaway and Guesty. So I was doing 20 to 30 statements a month manually. Well, again, once you get to 50, 60, you can't do that. So the accounting piece is so important. Again, just figuring out like what pieces are really important to you, or even asking your team. If you've got like a small team, ask them like, hey guys, what do you like? What's important? Because a lot of it is, at least for us, and what we use is just fluff. Like we could get rid of half the stuff that the PMS offers, probably more than half, and we wouldn't really need it. So just figuring out exactly what you need and what's super important to the core function and what you guys do, I'd say is the most important part.
It's good advice.
Yeah. And we do see a lot of top-down decisions being made, which that typically doesn't end well. That the one person that went to the conference, whether it's the owner or the GM, they come back and they say, this is what we're going to do. Yeah. And then they, didn't take into consideration what is really needed on the maintenance side or on the accounting side. And I've definitely seen a lot of teams actually fall apart because of that, or really struggle. Yeah. It's tough and you want to have that buy-in. So I think how you made your decision sounds like it made a lot of sense. Tell us a little bit more about your team. What does that look like, and what's the working model to keep those 70 units marketed and cleaned and rolling down?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got a team of 7 of us now, including myself. So myself kind of oversees a lot of the divisions, if you will. I try to focus a lot of my time on marketing the properties, revenue management, marketing to homeowners, and doing the sales on that side. Then we've got one guy that handles sort of the maintenance, cleaning, inspections side of the business. I've got one guy that helps on a lot of the owner communication and guest communication. And then I've actually got 3 virtual assistants that handle all the guest communication essentially, and then also do some admin work for different things. So helping with work orders, helping with random social media things or just random sort of administrative tasks they sort of help with. So and then I've got one guy that I just added on the business development side, trying to help me grow the business. So doing homeowner sales, reaching out to realtors, building relationships in the local area with other people that could, potential referral partners and whatnot. That's kind of the team right now. And I don't know. I've really got to start asking other people what their team makeup looks like at my size. Because again, I haven't really taken a model from any other business that I know of. It's more so just been figuring out first, it's what's the most time consuming stuff that's been taking up the majority of my time. I need someone to fill that. I'd say early on, the most time consuming stuff was running around to properties, handling cleaners, doing some of the minor maintenance, coordinating with contractors, that sort of stuff. So that was the first position I filled. Then the guest service side was the next position I filled, just because that's time consuming. And I'm one of those people that I need to get big, important work done. I need no distractions. If I get distracted, which is extremely tough in this business during the day, it's almost impossible. But if I get distracted, my focus is screwed. I need another 15 minutes to focus back on what I need to do. So I got someone for the guest service, got someone for the maintenance team. Just to be honest, one of my probably least favorite parts of the business is communicating with owners. And that sounds really bad, but I'm one of those people, I just want to get stuff done and move forward. I don't want to linger on it and talk about it. But sometimes that's what owners want to do. And that's totally acceptable. I'm totally fine with that. But I found someone else that is better in that role and can kind of handle that communication. So at first it was figuring out stuff to make me more efficient and more valuable. And then now I'm starting to, I guess, fill in my weaknesses or parts of the business that maybe I don't love doing. That's kind of
right. Yeah. That's really smart. Yeah, and Steve Trover, he always comes to mind when we talk about
Mhm.
like setting up your team. He's
Yeah.
really good, better talent working with companies to, outline what their org chart should look like,
Mhm.
even if you're not there yet, but like what you need to be thinking about as you get to those certain breaking points in inventory, because you
Mhm.
definitely do see. I mean, like you've got
Yeah.
a nice healthy team right now, but a couple years ago, I think it was basically just you and maybe one or two
Yeah.
of those people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got a little bit lately. Yeah, I remember that conversation I had with you. We were having lunch, and you were like, "Well, that does not seem like enough people."
Yeah, I was like, "I think we
And
need more people there."
you're definitely right.
Running in a million directions.
Yeah. And lately, two of those people I've hired pretty recently. So that 7-person team necessarily hasn't been in place this whole time. And to be honest, we're probably a little overstaffed at this point. And, at least we're in the off season, so it seems very
Yeah,
slow and not
yeah.
not as much to do. But our goal is also to grow and have smart growth and get quality rentals. But we want to grow, so that's kind of why I brought on a business development person and some of the other guys to help out.
Along the way, like just on the staffing note, going back to technology, one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of younger startup companies, entrepreneurs, people that are
Mhm.
newer to the business have been quicker to adopt technology for different
Mhm.
pieces of the business. And so, people employing like offshore staffing for, call center stuff, those type of things. Have you brought on any technology or any pieces that you don't need to run there day to day within the business that can be either technology or people elsewhere working
Yeah.
offsite?
Yeah. So definitely the virtual assistants have been huge, for that stuff. Actually, the buddy that kind of helped keep me in the game and kind of helped with the marketing plan early on that I was alluding to, he also was the one that's connected me with the VAs. So he's kind of the one that does the outreach or recruiting, whatever you want to call it, and kind of connects me. So he's been super helpful on that. Yeah. And then as far as technology, you know, you're talking about other technologies that make the business more efficient. Man, that's a good question. I don't know. I've kind of flipped my attitude on technology. We've got like the basic tools, right? The PMS. We've got a revenue management system that's super helpful. Actually, here's one that may answer that question. So we're actually, I guess you call it like partnering with a professional revenue management company now, because I've realized the revenue management piece is obviously extremely important, and the time it's taking me for at least the process that I've had is kind of breaking, or not necessarily breaking, but it's just taking exponentially longer than it was at, say 40 properties, 50 properties. So I've had to kind of adapt in that way, look at a revenue management company and bring them on. And then some other stuff. I know we want to talk about Happy Guests. They've been super helpful. Whereas before I wasn't collecting stuff like reservation agreements and security deposits, for like direct reservations, that sort of standard stuff that, that a lot of the old school companies do. I wasn't really doing that because I didn't really have an efficient way to collect that stuff that was feasible for us. But Happy Guests, for example, is probably the best tool that I'd say has made life easier. I would say a lot of the other technology tools that we've implemented are necessities. I'd say Happy Guest is probably the one that's made things easier.
Implementing Happy Guest, has that helped with the back and forth between your customers once they're here, when they have questions, things of that nature?
Yeah, it has. It's been, like I said, I think the most valuable thing for us early on was, when the guest first goes into Happy Guest, right? They got to go through 4 steps. They've got to agree to the house rules again, sign a reservation agreement, upload an ID, and then do a security deposit or damage waiver. So before, again, we were not collecting the reservation agreements. It was hard to keep it organized, and just didn't have really an automated way of doing it. Now we are on the vast majority of our guests. All of our direct guests are completing those. So that's been massive for us. It's just kind of it also helps me sleep at night. Like it was kind of scary before having
Yeah.
these direct reservations, and we didn't have many, to be honest. It wasn't long ago that we were getting like minimal to no direct reservations, but now you just feel a lot more confident with the guests coming through that they're going through that process, and then you get the added benefit of the upsells, right? So that's been huge. And then when guests come, it definitely helps. I think having a guidebook is amazing. We're gonna also start adding some like physical copies of Happy Guest in the homes, because we still get some older folks that just refuse to use the virtual guide. But I do think that a guidebook for your guest is like, it's funny. I'm seeing a lot of people, they almost expect it. We have a lot of people that say, hey, I'm sorry to bother you, but normally we come to a place and there's like a guidebook here for us, or, there's a virtual one or whatever. And we see you guys don't have that, or at least we didn't before Happy Guest. And I didn't really have an answer for them. I'm like, well, we can, we're happy to help you guys over the phone, or we can come out there and fix it for you. But it's funny, like a lot of the guests that are staying in vacation rentals, they almost expect it in a way.
Well, I think in our market too, I mean, Myrtle Beach, Panama City Beach, very similar to North Myrtle Beach too, that, these markets traditionally used to have like the big chamber book that was on the coffee table, right? So it's like that had printed every year, that had all the restaurants, the attractions, stuff like that. Those obviously are not as much of a thing anymore, but for people that have come back, and both of these markets have a lot of repeat guests, that's what they're used to finding when they get into vacation rental. So yeah, to be able to do it digitally obviously makes a lot more sense from a cost standpoint. And but yeah, something that you can have in the unit too, if you have something that can be replicated for print, fairly easily, I think that's really smart.
Yeah. I think having some combination of them is useful. And not to go off topic, but now we're trying to figure out more ways to educate guests on like, hey, we're a vacation rental company. It seems like no matter how many times
we're not just an Airbnb.
Exactly. It seems no matter how many times you include it in the messaging, like they still don't understand that, we have other rentals or we're a company that they can come back to and book direct with. So, I'm trying to think of new ways. And I think one of those ways is just, getting the message across as much and as in many mediums as possible. So I think having it on your virtual book, that has your company name, and then also stressing that in a physical book, and, having it in a survey and an email, just getting that across. I think if you're a company, is in as many ways as possible, is super, super important.
We'll be back in just a minute after a word from our premier brand sponsor, OwnerPoint.
My name is Talia Lockard. I am the Director of Sales and Marketing at Hostiva. We have about 6,000 properties, 2,000 we full service manage, and about 4,000 we co-host. We've been using OwnerPoint, I want to say, for almost a year now. We're in a lot of markets, right? So teaching each team member how to go source new leads and how to do acquisition and business development could be challenging. So previously we've done things very, very manually prior to using OwnerPoint, and OwnerPoint has made this automated for every market. So OwnerPoint really cut down the time that it took us to do it. Not only the research that it took, but the ability, I want to say we have like 10 plus markets in there, to get our team members in it very quickly and utilizing it. It was not difficult at all to implement in our operations, which is what we look at in a software. It was very fast. I would say we talked to the team, and within a week, we had someone on a phone call, we had logins, and we had almost like 1 or 2 trainings set up with different variations of our team members. It was a very quick onboarding and very quick ramp up time in getting started. The tangible benefits that we've seen since using OwnerPoint is obviously increase of time in our workers, right? So, we've gone from essentially maybe only sending a couple hundred letters a week to be able to send about thousands of letters in each area. It's also given us the ability to kind of bring sales and marketing together in a way that we weren't able to do before. I would absolutely recommend OwnerPoint to others, and I have to say I do very, very often because we use it a lot, and it is a tool that works for us. If you were really like, I don't know where to go, I don't have the team, and I don't have the time, or someone who wants to do a lot of data and research, OwnerPoint is really just more than amazing answer for you.
Ready to start growing your inventory and bringing in new properties? Head over to ownerpoint.io/Alex and Annie to see how they can help your business thrive.
That's ownerpoint.io/Alex-and-Annie, where you can turn leads into long-term relationships and grow your property management business. Now back to the show. So Declan, you're also involved in the Myrtle Beach Chamber of Commerce and CVB DMO board, which I was on for many years here, and just interested to hear how that's going and what you've maybe learned from being on the board. I think a full year now?
Just about a year. So I guess I started in January of this year with the Myrtle Beach Chamber, and it's been amazing. Like I said, it's kind of been a surprising it's been like a really enjoyable, surprising thing for me. My dad was, he's a big proponent of networking, getting to know people, being involved, whether that's politically or just in the community, community service, whatever it is. He's big about getting out there and sharing your voice or sharing, stuff that So he really encouraged me to get into it. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I thought it was kind of one of those, lame things that was just going to be boring and talk about politics, and it was going to be slow and, old people. But it turns out those old people are actually a lot of fun. Probably some of them are probably more fun than my friends.
Yeah.
Thinking about a certain someone that we both know, Alex.
Yeah.
But it's been amazing. I thought I knew a lot about the area being from it, but just being on there, you learn so much more. And I think the biggest thing is just like the people I meet are incredible. It's just a amazing room. It's amazing to be in that room with those guys and girls once a month. The resumes in that room are incredible. So even just talking to them and learning more about them and asking them random questions here and there has been so valuable. But yeah, it's been amazing. It's been really cool.
Yeah.
I always found it was good when I sat on the chamber board that they kind of like the cross section of people that you would never have run into, in your daily, your daily grind, or even in the business that you were in. You generally wouldn't have a meeting where you sat down with a banker and a teacher and a lawyer and, a doctor and all these different minds who have different perspectives. But I think it's good that you took that leap to be involved, even if you had to be involved with a bunch of old people like me.
Yeah.
It's good. And I think, so many people in this industry, one thing that we talk about all the time, like in vacation rentals specifically, but I think in hospitality in general, is that people are pretty giving and they want to share their knowledge and they want to impart it on the next generation. So help you not make the mistakes, and they want you to ask questions. And if you jump into it and realize that you don't either have to be intimidated or you don't have to go in with all the answers, and know that there's this whole group of people that wants to help elevate you as a person and as a business. And that's what the Chambers of Commerce do a great job.
Yeah.
I think people sometimes forget that they're not there to just make sure that, the report outside the market is that the sun is always shining. There's lots of things that they do to help the destination. So, being a young business, that's really smart of you to have jumped in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I try to encourage a lot of my friends who are, some of my friends have started their own businesses, and, and some others have kind of grown in the businesses that they started with. So I've encouraged all of them to get involved as well. I think they're kind of thinking the same thing I was, it's maybe not for me, but I've really encouraged people to get out there and Andy, to your point, it's amazing. I think you learn so much. I think it's good to be involved too, right? It's so easy to go through life and just think about yourself and what I've got to do, especially if you're a business owner, right? You're just focused on, keeping the thing alive and keeping it going and doing better. But if you take a step back and really think about the long term and what you're really trying to do, getting involved in the community like that it's gonna help you, and it's also more importantly gonna help the community and others around you. So getting educated, getting involved like that is I can't stress it enough. It's so important.
Yeah, we definitely agree with that. And I think, the nice thing about our destination here is I think everybody, or the wide majority of people, really embrace that too. And I will say, different areas and companies that we've talked to, not everybody, most areas don't have as robust of a chamber that we do. I mean, it's the fourth largest in the country, and just crazy advertising budgets and a lot of political power there. But even beyond the monetary side, a lot of areas don't have that association as something that really brings tourism together. And I think because we are a chamber and a CVB together, that's where it becomes a little bit different there, that there is such a big focus and an emphasis on tourism that a lot of what the chamber does is explaining to locals and people that move to the area that, tourism works for us. I mean, the reason that you're able to move down here and your taxes are so low and you have all these great restaurants and shops, it's because of the tourists. It's not, there's not enough locals here to be spending all that money that it could justify, that commercial development. But it is amazing to see just over the years how much things have changed here. And a lot of that, it comes from the work of a lot of great people getting
Yep.
together and putting together a plan.
Yeah. The team there is so talented too. I mean, Stuart Butler's amazing on the marketing side, and I didn't really realize how much of an impact, the chamber had here locally in Myrtle Beach. And then you get in there and you see the budget and you see kind of the different things they're doing to get our name out there and stay out there and stay in front of people. And it's so competitive, right? Like there's so many great destinations, but you consistently see Myrtle Beach is, like on TripAdvisor, we're top 5 destination in the country, in North America, I think. Like that's incredible. And I don't really think people realize like a lot of that can be attributed back to what the chamber does, because they're doing these big macro sort of things that, you're like, how does that help my vacation rental?
Right.
But marketing is complex, and that team handles it really well and does a great job with the resources they have. So that's been the other cool part of it is the ideas that they're thinking about and trying to take Myrtle Beach to the next level is incredible. It's cool to be a part of.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so what's next, Declan? I mean, you're at the 70 units now. What are your plans for 2025? Do you have any goals set for how much you want to grow, or just different parts of the business that you're looking to expand upon?
Yeah, definitely. So, the goal over the next 3 years is really to get to that around that 250, 300 rental mark. That's kind of where I want to get. And I think it's ambitious, but I also think we can achieve it. And I think that's kind of where you want to be as sort of a professional management company in this market is to that level. I also want to, going back to one of my weaknesses is organization, and it's so important in this business. So I really want to get all of our processes and systems organized, and then bring in, a COO or a manager, whatever you'd like to call them, to really manage the business. Because that's one area I'm weak in, is that organization, overseeing people. It's just kind of one of the things I'm a little weak in. So I think bringing somebody in for that position once it makes sense here and maybe the next 6 months or so, I think could really, really start to propel us. And then that way I can kind of focus my efforts on the marketing side. And then just growing the business. Like some of those, the people I've mentioned on my team have really been with me since like the early days. So really, I want to get it to a point where like, they're being compensated very well and they're really enjoying what they're doing and they have people under them to manage. So growth isn't just necessarily like, I want to get to this arbitrary number. There's purpose behind it and want to do well for the team and all that fun stuff. So
I love that.
You've got the right attitude.
Yeah, really well said.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I did want to ask you about, because we're fellow podcasters. So you've started a podcast.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting. So what's it called and where can people find it?
Yeah. So I think what we have it called now is just the My Beach podcast. Or no, sorry. It's STR Unlocked. We've been changing around the name. Actually, I think there's another STR Unlocked out there. So I've probably got to change that. But yeah, like I was saying, we've got a few episodes going. I'm trying to focus more on the property management world now. Early on, I was just trying to get guests, and a lot of that was just local folks. But now I'll have to have you guys on there soon.
Yeah, I'd love to.
But yeah, just trying to focus on the property management world. And like, it's kind of twofold. One is like, selfishly, I just want to kind of pick the mind of other property managers a little bit more.
Yeah.
But then two, I think I'm a big believer in sort of like the abundance mindset, right? Like, you get what you give. Like I want to put as much information out there that people are willing to share as possible. And I think there's definitely a lot of cool stuff that people know that we can share and kind of get out there to people that are maybe in my position or maybe starting off or even, a little bit ahead and really have an established business. So that's kind of the approach with it and trying to be consistent. I've probably been averaging like an episode every 2 weeks. So that's kind of the case with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's still pretty good, though. Most podcasts fail after episode 5, I believe the stats say. There are like 90-something% don't do any more than that because it is time consuming. But I think your intent behind it and what you're trying to get out of it, that's what's going to keep you going with it. Because I would agree completely. I think Annie and I have learned as much as we've put out to the world. We've learned so much from the guests that we have on the show. So selfishly, we love that. But it's also, it's just great to share the stories of people who have done it. And, it's inspiring to hear how somebody else built their business and what they ran into. And there's a lot of great stories in our industry. So
yeah, absolutely. No. And I'm inspired by you guys. I think what you've kind of done, it's cool because it's like, when did you guys start this?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Almost the day.
Really close.
3 years. Yeah. And I remember, Alex, I think after I met you, I listened to a few episodes. So that was probably like a year and a half, 2 years ago or so. And you guys are like, now you've got all these awesome sponsorships and have grown a ton. So I feel like you guys are kind of like the podcast of the STR world. So it's been, you guys are up there. So it's been cool to kind of follow you guys. And I definitely, I think what you guys do really well is you have such a wide range of people that come on, right? It's not just like this guy that's doing vacation rentals in Myrtle Beach. There's such a wide range of topics. So you guys do a great job and keep it up.
Oh, thank
you so much.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Declan. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
You can find me on Instagram. I think it's at Declan McGonigal, I believe. Or you can go to our website. That might be the easier way. It's mybeachrentals.com. If you submit an inquiry, it'll come straight to me. Or if you go to our contact us page, I think it's still my phone number might be one of the numbers on it.
Oh no!
Yeah, I probably gotta get that
after this.
But yeah, either of those methods, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to share what I know and get the word out there. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to get in touch with Annie and I, you can go to alexandanniepodcast.com. And until next time, thanks for tuning in, everybody.